But I think, the offensive line in this lost season that we're in the midst of, 10 games into it with still 7 left, to me, there is a positive takeaway, and it's the O-line. The Tunsil deal was a deal that's worked out in a big way. Chris Paul, the discovery of him, not by injury, but by performance, was big. Biotish has been solid all along. Cosme, we know, has a chance to be, a top, third worst case guard in this league. And then we've got some time on Connerly Jr. for sure. And you got Brandon Coleman, who's proven to be at the very least versatile from a depth standpoint. We'll see what they really think of Coleman when the season ends. Because I do think there's, a possibility with all of those inactive weeks that it could be something more. But we'll find that out at the end of the season. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. What can you take out of this season that you consider to be positive? Max, before I get to the phone lines, what do you got?
Yeah, a couple things. I want to just remind everybody of the Ravens game that we played in last year, where it was like Jaden's wasn't the first loss because we lost to Tampa, but it was the first like big kind of loss where they showed a camera shot of Jaden Daniels sitting on the bench and he was visibly furious. So I think this season is kind of just an entire stretch of that, like understanding what this, like having a lost season 10 games in feels like, and not wanting to ever have to feel that again. That motivation, all of that kind of coming into that. But another part of it, I feel like will end up being a net positive at the end of the day. Last year, the defense wasn't great. It was good enough. This year, it has not been good at all. So I do think that the defensive changes going forward, like I don't think Joe Witt's going to be around next year. I don't think you think that either.
That's the positive. That they were so bad that they had to make a move.
Basically, yeah, that's kind of another way you can put it. But yeah, I think a new voice defensively is going to be big for this team going forward. I mean, I was really high on this secondary coming in. I still think Mikey, he's got the highs and lows. He just needs more highs. Trey Amos has been a great addition to that secondary too. So there are a couple things here and there, but it's tough to pick out right now. You picked a good question, Kev.
I got another positive that I will get to if you guys don't hit on it. 301-230-0980. Trying to pull positives or a positive from what Dan described in his tweet to me, a lost season. And it does appear as if that's, where we're headed, to a season where like it just never even got started. And we know the reasons why. Let's start with Rylan. Rylan, go ahead.
Hey, Kev. Good morning, buddy.
Hey, Rylan. How are you?
So the only good thing, I've been better, but hey, here we are. I'd say the only good thing that could come out of this year is that it means nothing to be a commander now in that building, or it shouldn't be. I think if there's ever a chance to rebrand, it's today.
Yeah.
Like, let's get rid of that commander standard, because all that means is a tough year of injuries and continuously getting our teeth kicked in. So let's flip that script and leverage this pitiful year with at least something like the football team again.
Yeah, well, you and I would love to see that. I don't think it'll happen. But that was funny the way you said it, because there was a lot of talk about, the commander standard and what he's a real commander. You got to be careful with those things when you haven't really won anything. Snyder, I remember would say all the time, we gave him a really strong Redskin grade. What the hell does that mean? You guys have sucked for so long. You got to earn, describing your organization, and standards within your organization in ways like that. And there was some of that in the offseason. He's a real commander. We gave him a really strong commander grade. Enough. Yeah, I'm with you. Let's go to Anthony in D.C. Anthony, go ahead.
So, Kevin, the positive of this season will be that we are not who they thought we were. We are.
Okay. Why is that a positive? Why is that taking a positive out of it? Because there'll be less what?
Now they have to go back to building this thing
Presumptive?
the right way.
Uh-huh.
Now they have to go back to building it the right way. Adam Peters can't go bargain hunting at the Homeboy Shopping Network anymore. He has to he has to find people that are going to be here for a while. So all these 1 year, one and dones, that has to be out the door. It has to be brick by brick by brick. I understand 2014 was 2024 was an anomaly. They had to go for it. I give you that. But now the reality has set in.
Well, wait a minute. You just said they went bargain hunting. They've got to change that. So did they go for it, or did they go bargain shopping?
Well, they went for it with the trades, but they went bargain hunting with the free agents. That has to change. So now we have to build brick by brick and build this thing up again. I told you this before, and you weren't too keen on it. Before this roster is right, it's going to take at least 2 to 3 years, maybe even 4, because of the dearth of
I've agreed with that. I just the optimism stemmed from all of that's true, and it's going to take time to get to the point in which you have an absolute killer roster. But in the meantime, you got the most important position right, and so that gives you a chance.
Right, but check this out. So, looking at this objectively, we need 1, maybe 2 wide receivers. We need 2 defensive ends. We need 2 linebackers. We need at least 1 cornerback, and we need a safety. We're not getting that in 1 year, let alone 2 years.
We're not doing the how to fix it right now. We've got plenty of time to do that, right? We're going to be doing that together for the last few weeks of the regular season, right in to the off season. I'm just asking, is there anything positive that you can take from this lost season? And you think it's that they'll get back to building it 1 block at a time, right?
Hopefully.
Okay. Got it.
All right.
Thank you,
thanks.
Anthony, as always. Let's go to Ian. Ian, go ahead.
Kevin, I agree with the previous caller, but to stay on topic, I think if you want to find a positive, you would point to special teams on punt return and kickoff return. I think those 2 have been a little bit above average on expectation, and I think there is some legitimate optimism heading into 2026. But if I could sidetrack the conversation and not be coachable, I think the question you need to start asking is not the blip versus fluke or what the Joe Witt conversation is more around what will change in 2026. I think there's a legitimate rumor that they might make some more coaching staff changes if Kingsbury takes a college job, et cetera, and they say hire Mike McDaniel or whomever. But the key question to me going forward for this franchise isn't Peters, Witt, or Kingsbury. It's really, can Jaden Daniels stop taking unnecessary hits and putting himself in position to miss games? Because you can have the greatest coaching staff, the greatest O-line, D-line, everything else around it. But if he continues this path, it's not going to end well. And my concern isn't it's an offensive coordinator issue. It's a lack of judgment by him to, like you said, on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 4, why are you taking these colossal shots that look like car crashes for no reason? And I think there's a difference between being competitive and being competitively intelligent about
your value. I agree with that. I agree with that. But back to your, what's going to change next year? Well, let's start with the reason this year is where it is. Hopefully, they're a healthier team in 2026. That would make a massive difference. And of course, starting with Jaden Daniels, of course. Because having him for half the games in a season is not going to turn out well. That's for sure. And to your point, there is not only decision-making on his end, but there's decision-making on the coaching end, right? I mean, he shouldn't have been in that game against Seattle unless he was just handing the ball off. That's one of the injuries. Agreed. And you could argue to a certain degree, I think less so, much less so, that, taking chances late in a game that was 27-10 at Lambeau wasn't necessarily the right thing to do. But I think that circumstance was not, apples to apples with the Seattle game. What else do you have?
Well, again, I think both can be true, and we've talked over this over DM. I agree that injuries have had a significant impact. Where I disagree with you is when the team was healthy, seeing them in the Giants game and the Packers game left a lot to be desired for a team that had Super Bowl aspirations. So I think this notion of just pinning it on injuries kind of lets them off
just pinning
saying,
it is not
injury.
the description. The most of the pinning of it on injuries is the description and has been the description. It's the number one reason on the pie chart of why they're 3-7. And it's by far the biggest slice of the pie chart. But I would agree with you, and I've talked about this in recent weeks. I think even if they had stayed really healthy on defense, it wouldn't have obviously looked like this, scout teamish, but it wasn't going to be a great defense. And because they were playing what turned out to be, we saw it, going into the season, but you're never sure, but it's worked out that it's been a very difficult, stretch of games that they'd have been fighting for their lives to remain in contention with that defense, even if it had remained healthy.